So guess what I was doing just now?
I don't know. I saw you back there in the green room going just a little crazy.
Yeah, I'm fighting with, guess what? I'm fighting with, guess what? Guess who?
I'm sure it's Rumble, your favorite app of all time. Your favorite.
I'm about to have a heart attack with that stupid, because I actually kind of went ahead and, you know, Jake Merrick's going to be with us on Friday. And so I went ahead and put up, you know, scheduled Jake for Friday. And so it decided that it was going to go live on Jake instead of on Trenton.
Oh.
So apparently we've got quite a few people on to watch Trenton this morning. This is good news. Earl's daughter says good morning. Good morning with you. So golly, has there been anything happening in the news lately?
What do you want to talk about? I mean, okay, so we're not going to do it on today's show, but I have a whole list back on those tokens. You know, the new tokens are stable coins that are coming in that we need to talk about.
Am I going to want to kill people after we do it?
No,
or is it good news? No,
it's not good news. It's not good news at all. I have a pretty good handle on a lot of the things, but just think about this, Jenny. You go to the carnival, okay? The fair comes into town. They've got all the games set up. They've got the Ferris wheel, all the stuff. What do you do to be able to participate at the carnival?
We have to pay.
Yeah, but you have to trade your money in for their tokens or their bracelet or their system.
Okay, yeah, right. Yeah, right.
You know, same like going to Chuck E. Cheese or whatever it may be.
Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah, same thing is happening with stable coins and the dollar. So you know, looking at it further, a company like Walmart can issue their own stable coin.
Oh, geez, I guess that's true. I never thought about it like that.
Stable coin. Amazon can issue their own stable coin. They can
thought about that.
Trade your dollars in for their coins, and then they're gonna incentivize them, program them, have expiration dates. Oh, well, you got these dollars here. You're gonna have to use them by this time, or they're gonna. I mean, that's where we're going. I'm telling you, that's where we're going. We'll talk about that another day. But you want to talk about a hammer? Oh, you want to talk about a hammer?
You okay there this morning, bud? All right.
You want to talk about just hammering liberty and freedom?
Yeah.
Things are bad news.
Well, I think that's gonna, but there was an 8.8 magnitude earthquake off of Russia.
Yeah.
And so there were tsunami waves in Alaska, Hawaii, and Japan. But it looks like there wasn't, it looks like there weren't any. I'm reading through Epoch Times. And it says the highest tidal deviation yet was 1.99 feet as of 4 a.m. So, but it says this is far from over. So I don't know. So we've got to kind of pray for those people, keep them in our prayers, because that's bad news. And then, of course, we have our state superintendent of public instruction who is being accused now of watching pornography on his on the television in his office. So we have that. And our friend Lisa needs prayers because she's passing a kidney stone. Talked to her yesterday. That's bad news. John says lottery's 384 million. One can buy a lot of tokens with that. $384 million. Dang. Our friends out in Hawaii said they're still being told to stay on high ground. Yeah, I don't think, yeah. We'll have to keep watching that. Keep them in our prayers. What?
I said you could do some damage on the farm with 384 million.
You mean like just pay for some sheep care?
Yeah.
380. Yes. My VAT would be so happy. Be like, yes. All right. Well, today we have I'm excited because today we have on somebody who I think is the hope of me, old people in my age group. I kind of look at this up and coming, these generations as and I think maybe we'll talk to, this is Trenton Rippy we're going to talk to today, who's with Young Americans for Liberty, and I just am excited to have him on because we don't have anything if we don't have youth. There's nothing that comes along behind. We don't perpetuate history without our youth. So Sean says, hey, who's old? Me. I wasn't talking about you. So let's bring on somebody who's young. Let's bring on Trenton Rippy this morning and talk to Trenton. How are you this morning, Trenton?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you for having me on.
No, thank you for being with us. I'm so excited to have you. And you and I talked, what has it been, a couple of weeks ago? And I was just like, yes.
Yeah,
Tell
it
us.
was. I know we've talked a little bit. So glad to be on so we can have some more conversations about things going on and whatever else you want to chat about.
So I read something about you yesterday. You're originally from Chickasha.
Yep, born and raised. Lived there for about 20 years. And then I'm temporarily living down here in Austin for work. But the good part about my job is I get to go up to Oklahoma a lot. And then also help out, Texas down here. And it's pretty good because, you get to see kind of two different legislatures and you get to see kind of two different sides of grassroots. And there's a lot of, things that work here that I think would work up in Oklahoma. And I've also learned a lot of things that are down here that we damn sure don't want to bring up to Oklahoma.
Yeah, I've noticed some stuff that has really been frustrating with Texas.
Mm-hmm.
They've done some boneheaded stuff lately. So I'm like, oh my goodness, what is going on? And then, our governor became head of the National Governors Association. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Just what a great way to bring in those UN, World Economic Forum. There's
Well,
great ideas out
you know,
there.
he did say top 10 state. He didn't say top 10 on what. So yeah, no, it's concerning to see the celebrations from some people over, extended bureaucracy.
And let's not forget Mary Fallon was also head of the, I don't know why they keep picking Oklahomans to be, that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think part of that is they see Oklahoma, I think, as a vulnerable state. I mean, it's what we see politicians do all the time, right? If they give you a seat at the table, they make you feel special. It's a lot easier to deceive someone that way when you butter them up a little bit versus if you know, just kind of, have them a little bit involved.
I think that's exactly what it is. But let's get back to this other part. So the article that I read about you was that you were already becoming an activist at Chickasha High School.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I had served on my student council, and I'm usually pretty critical of student governments now, but it was one of those things where no one was talking about real issues. It was just, well, what do we want the homecoming theme to be? And I'm like, well, that's great, but like we're getting all these fees on students, where we got hats banned in school. Like, who cares if you're wearing a hat? So we did a lot of fun stuff out there, and I'm sure you saw from the article, we finally got a win after. I said 9 months when I wrote that little piece, but really it was almost a 3-4 year fight.
The fight was to quit from paying parking fees.
Yes. So the high school charged a mandatory parking pass fee annually of $20. And I tell a lot of people that say, oh, well, it's just $20. It's like, well, that's, I'm glad that we have the privilege to be able to say that it's just $20. But when you look at it on a principal basis, it's double taxation. And also, like, it's already paid for. And then they couldn't even give you a straight answer on where the money was going. So now this year, there's going to be a free parking option. I do know from what I've heard, they're going to have kind of like an optional thing. Like if you want to reserve a spot and customize it, that I'm like, whatever. I'd consider it a win because we got enough available parking for free and accessible to all students, that the tax dollars are already paying for. So I can at least sleep a little bit better at night knowing students aren't being stolen from to just go to their school.
You've got a fan club on here. I'm not going to be able to keep up with all of them.
They keep me motivated. I appreciate those guys. So
but yeah, Lisa says $20 to park your own car at a public high school. That is insane. Why?
Yeah.
I mean, oh, don't get me started. I was going to go off, but I'm not, because we're going to talk about you first. I'll save my rants for later.
Well, feel free to rant away. I'll say this real quick before we jump into more things. A lot of people say it's insane, and I agree with them, but I think what's even more insane is the amount of schools that do this. Just about every school in the state has some sort of parking fee. So to look at their schools and go harass their local school board, or do what we did and knock over 800 doors in your community over a weekend against the superintendent. And that seems to get the job done.
So that's what we need to talk about. So let's work into that, though. So I was really, when I found you on social media. And are you still working the call-in number?
I think I might have it fixed. I just want to make sure. So I knew I could stop you if I rang. See, Trent, we're going to be a little more interactive. We're going to have a call-in show. So I was testing in the background while Jenny's going. I was testing that our call-in speakers were going into the podcast. So I knew if I hit that, if it was working, I knew it would stop Jenny in her tracks.
Here's the funny thing that people don't know, though, is that you've been obsessed.
Yeah, that's the best part. Because Jenny, I want to get, there's going to be some anonymous Jenny haters, and they'll call in on the call-in line to yell at you on the show. And that's what we need to get some good Jenny yell at clips for the show. Those are the best.
You're lining the Jenny haters up, loser.
Yeah. See that they don't want to be over here on the side on Facebook or whatever, because we know exactly who they are and we can put their stuff up there. You will, Lisa, you will be on the air. You can call in hopefully Friday. You can call in and talk
honestly, you're killing me. Okay, so let's get back to this. So when I found you on social media, I looked up Young Americans for Liberty because I prefer the word. This is what you and I talked about. I prefer the word liberty. Freedom really, honestly, doesn't mean anything anymore. Liberty actually has a grounding in the Constitution. The founders understood the concept of liberty. There's actually a legitimate definition of that word that applies to us in regard to the Constitution. So to me, liberty means everything. That's the word, not freedom. I've got freedom, whatever. I want my liberty. I want you people to get out of my life and let me be an adult and do my own thing. So when I went and looked, and so you guys kind of got your start, it sounded like to me, so kind of flesh this out. After Ron Paul, so when Ron Paul ran for president, that was kind of the impetus for Young Americans for Liberty?
Yeah. So we started out, and I always joke, I say we, like I wasn't in diapers. But, we started out as students for Ron Paul. The greatest congressman we probably ever had. I always say the best president we never had. Obviously he ran his 2 different campaigns. We had people behind them to support him. And then, after the campaign stuff was over, it's like, well, now we've got this movement, right, of liberty activists, young people, middle-aged people, old people, everyone, Americans, right, that want to get out there, they want to kick some ass, and they want to take the country back the grassroots way, not the, big buck lobbyist way, not the, crony way. We want to take our country back. And so we formed as Young Americans for Liberty, and then we've been kicking it ever since.
Well, I've told this story before, but I'll tell it one more time. I met Ron Paul only one time with his wife, and that was honestly, that was the nicest person I have ever met on the planet. He has those eyes. He's like, oh, Jenny, it's so nice to meet you. And his wife was just in there. Jenny, they were just the sweetest people I ever met. And we kind of had we just only had about a 15 or 20 minute conversation. But that man was the nicest man I think I've ever met.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen the memes, but it's always like, well, who radicalized you? And it's like, well, the nicest man on the planet. Because he's a great guy. I've got to meet him a couple times. Very, very gentle, very well put together. He's very well spoken for his age too. He's turning 90, coming up here next week.
You guys had him at your y'all conference.
Yep. We've had him at our y'all conferences. We've got him coming to the Ron Paul barbecue that's coming up in Lake Jackson this next week. So it's always a good time to get to talk to Mr. Paul.
Yeah, he is awesome. So let's go back to kind of what you do, because I want you to tell people, because we do have some younger viewers, and we do have a group of young people in this state that are now more active than I've ever seen. We've had some young Republicans, we've had some college Republicans, that kind of thing. But the young Republicans, I think, in this state are way more active now than I've ever seen. And I would love for them to be able to, kind of hitch up with you guys. What do you do?
Yeah, so great question. And I'll kind of go into a couple different parts. So at YAL, or, Young Americans for Liberty, I'm the South Regional Director. So I'm a part of our campus program, which is our largest program. That's where we put our biggest focus on. So what I do, I oversee pretty much the whole kind of like Bible Belt of the United States, extended over to like Texas and Oklahoma. Obviously, I give Oklahoma a little bit of special treatment because it is my home state, very dear to me. But what I do is I help all of our student activists mobilize on campus. We help them identify policy fights. So, for instance, in Oklahoma, colleges force students to buy meal plans, generally speaking, at most colleges. So we've been mobilizing against that. Would love to touch more on that fight here in a little bit. But then also part of my job now that we're integrating our legislative grassroots, you've probably seen American Action Fund kind of rebranding also the name Liberty Action. But we're starting to have kind of this integration between campus and grassroots because we're running into a really good problem, which is too much winning. We're winning all these policy fights on campus. We're overturning pepper. We're doing tuition
Okay, back up
fights.
because you're cutting in and out. You cut in and out. You overturned what now?
Yeah, so some colleges have like pepper spray bans. Yeah, we've overturned those. We've fought.
Wait, can I ask you a question? Why a pepper
Sure.
spray ban?
Because some people, it's a lot easier to push an agenda when you have victims and you allow people to be victims, I think. And then we get some people on campus, they say, oh, well, I don't want to get pepper sprayed. It's like, well, are you a rapist? Like, why would you get pepper sprayed? And just stay away from people and don't. There's no serial pepper sprayer running around on campus. That's just the reality. But yeah.
Sorry, that was hysterical. I mean, it's true. It's true. Come on, that's dopey.
Yeah, and that's what I get to do. I'm doing a little more with like our community groups too. Coming here talking to you, getting to speak with Michael, and just getting to speak with everyone just across the state, and try to help other grassroots groups. Get together and figure out, what's the bigger picture and how can we all collaborate on this to actually take the state back from the establishment. So that's what I get to do. Love my job. Wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. So yeah, it's great getting to help student activists. We find them on campus, get them trained up on, the real nature of politics. Politics is about confrontation, not compromise. And, we get them out, whether they're on campus or they're out in the community fighting a legislative battle, and or, in more recent cases, going up and confronting their legislators face to face on camera.
So you're kind of, and I'm not going to say that you're just a different way of doing things. You're more assertive, I think, than most people. And I don't think, you're not rude or ugly. You're just assertive.
Yeah. Well, and I tell people, like, you have to be assertive, especially in this day and age, right? Because these guys, they get a million emails that, please, Mr. Legislator, please give me, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. It's like, look, these guys work for us. If you had an employee that, one, doesn't work half the year, and then they show up and they work maybe half of that half, you'd be pretty mad at them. And so that's our job, is to go in and get students riled up and, let communities know and educate them on, their policymakers, whether that's local or state, what they're doing, and have them be held accountable. And like you said, I don't think that's rude. I think that's just holding our civic servants to a standard of servitude to the people that are, putting food on their table, because the decisions that they make affect my life, your life, the entire state. And honestly, sometimes they can set the precedent for the entire country.
I agree. Lisa's got a question for you. She says, do you meet up with young adults outside of college campuses? We need that in the OKC area.
Absolutely. Lisa, would love for you to reach out to me after this, and we can get in contact. I'm planning on coming up to Oklahoma for extended amount of time here soon once the semester starts up. So we're looking to build community chapters too, with young adults and just adults in general off campus, because it's great having the students mobilized on campus. I think it's a great pipeline into grassroots activism. But if we have people that are just out in the community that want to get activated, let's do it.
Well, I think too what Lisa's talking about. Lisa homeschools. I homeschooled. There's a pretty large homeschooling population in Oklahoma because we have more liberty to homeschool in Oklahoma than almost any state. And a lot of people that I've talked to have literally come from other states to come here specifically to homeschool. My next door neighbor, they came here specifically. They picked Oklahoma because they wanted to homeschool. So really, honestly, getting into the homeschooling community in Oklahoma, I think is going to be even bigger, broaden you just even a little bit more.
Yeah, well, and I mean, the homeschool community in Oklahoma knows it best. I mean, that's a group that's been under fire, especially during this past session. We saw the attempt to track and form cases and, continue to poke and prod and intrude into people. And it's not the state's business. And these are people that claim that they're all in on the fight for liberty. But they show their true colors, and that the best thing that we can do is show their community political sins, if you will, and mobilize.
So you knocked 800 doors, you said, against the superintendent at Chickasha. Is that kind of the way that you mobilize? Is that what you train your people to do, is door knocking?
Sure. Well, that's one of them. And I mean, when you look at a lot of data, door knocking can produce upwards to, 7% plus, turnout, additional turnout to what would have been the turnout on an election or on any sort of anything. And there's a lot of people that think, well, 7% is not that much. It's like, well, it may not seem like it, but when you look at these polls and you look at the results of a lot of these, sometimes it comes down to 4%, 5%. So 7's making a big difference. But we train students on how to door knock and how to go out. We actually have our program now that we've been launching with our campus mobilization team. They're called our Days of Action. So sometimes you'll have students will go out and door knock. And also, I think door knocking is good because it builds some of those interpersonal skills with the students too. How to answer those tough questions at the door, how to interact with constituents. And we've had YAL members that have, went up and they've ran for state legislatures and won. And, I would argue that part of that is because, well, they know how to effectively communicate with their base and actually listen to the concerns. So we do that. We'll train them on how to do like what we call like lit drops too. So that might be, just going to a neighborhood. Maybe we're not really looking to collect a lot of data. We're just trying to get a message out really quick. So we'll go in and just, flyer whole areas. And then we also have like our Days of Action where students will go to the Capitol and they'll advocate for different issues. Like we saw some YAL trained activists do this past session. And we even had one that went to a legislator, went to her home county and called her out on the issue and confronted her in front of the whole county GOP. So a lot of fun stuff.
Well, I do think it's a necessary. I think we've spent too many years thinking somehow that the people that we elect are better or smarter or I don't know, somehow have something over us. And so we've quit thinking of them as public servants and we think of them as some kind of autocratic head, royalty. My rep says royalty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we drew the comparison last time we were at the Capitol. I mean, if you look at the Capitol architecture, I mean, capitals across the country, it's got that kind of almost Greek temple, like,
Yeah.
where they
Oh,
worship
yeah.
false gods. And now we've seen politicians raise themselves to be false gods, and they act like, everyone's here, and you've got the almighty, Speaker of the House and Senate President up here, just raining down the hammer.
So my next question is going to be, what made Trenton Rippy? I mean, why did you decide to get involved with this? What made you interested in politics? What made you?
Yeah. So, there's a couple different points in my life that I think really shaped kind of my ideology. I always say when people say that they're not political, I think some of those people are the most political, and I would argue those are some of the most liberty-minded folks often, because they say they're not political just because they want the government out of their lives, and that's how my parents were. I would always hear complaints about taxes and stuff. Didn't really understand that growing up. Obviously now I do, but just my folks wanted to, be able to live our lives how we wanted to. And I always remember just being like, man, why are there so many different little rules and like things we got to pay for? Like we wanted to do a yard sale. And I remember my mom explaining, well, hey, we've got to go get a permit to do the yard sale. Or I wanted to do a lemonade stand. It's, oh, well, you got to get a permit for that. And then, when I got into high school, just like all the unnecessary rules, no hats, parking fees. And then you ask, and it's like, well, why? Well, that's just how we've always done it. It's like, well, I need an actual reason on why we're doing things the way we're doing. I'm not going to take, well, we've just done it that way. It's like, well, we've done it the stupid way. So that's kind of what made me to where I've been. Another thing too, I used to be a part of like, just some other different like political youth groups stuff before YAL, and just going to different conferences and stuff. Just always hearing that, well, we got to compromise. But then seeing, legislators that never compromise. And I got to thinking, it's like, well, why do I have to compromise on my set of values? But because they want me to, right? Like, why am I never allowed to hold my ground, but these guys are? So that's definitely what's shaped my ideology to be what it is today. Of just sink the teeth into them. Like, we've only got one shot at life. At least stand on principle.
Well, Trenton, kind of in the vein of that with yourself, what do you see as what's activating more and more younger people, kind of in your opinion, to be more liberty minded? Is it like the moral value system now, the censorship? There's a ton of things that it's hard to get a job. Like you said, there's all these little rules and policies on. What's the biggest thing you see kind of turning people to the liberty side?
Well, I think it's just us growing up now and like realizing we don't have the same future that a lot of generations had. And it's a lot of that when you really start to look at the issues is because, the government over regulations. And I think what's activating a lot of youth, one, seeing other youth activists, like for instance, Jenny, I know you guys had Kennedy Garza on the other day. She's doing some phenomenal work up there in northeastern Oklahoma. Seeing more youth turn out, I think, one, we have to set that example. And Michael, I think that's what's, one, getting people just inspired and getting them activated. But also, I mean, like I said, just people growing up, like trying to move out, and then they're seeing, oh, well, man, all this money is getting taken out of my paycheck. I've got to pay X, Y, and Z licensing fee. Everything's so expensive. Just a number of kind of like the real world policy factors that now that we, are older and we can finally grasp, what the cause of these, issues are. We're seeing that now, on the flip side too. I think part of the youth challenge with liberty minded folks is there's a lot of push to be left wing, right? There's a lot of this push with like youth to, oh, well, these big hawks up in DC, they're all right wingers, right? I mean, that's, well, it's like, well, these people aren't real conservatives though, that are up there. Uniparty, and, no specific person is coming to save us. And I think that my generation is starting to realize that, like, we have to save ourselves. we have to stick up for our own personal values. And I think we're going to continue to see that. And I would argue I have one of the most radical generations too. Everyone's craving something different. I think we're finally getting out of that Overton window of incrementalism, and we're finally slowly starting to push it to radical change. We don't want a cut to the income tax by 0.25%. We want the whole thing abolished. So things like that.
So I'm trying to, because I have young people myself who grew up with me being a political animal, and they are, I think I've exhausted them. They're all like, I just can't, I don't want to. How do you see getting some of these people that are out of college, they're out of high school, obviously, they're out of college. There's a gap in there from where you graduate college, but then, and you've gone out on your own, but you're still not, family, you're not all that busy with family. How do you get these people? I mean, how do we find and engage those people? Because I think they're kind of getting lost. I mean, when I look at my kids, so much of it is, it's just so hard to get a job. One of them sent out 45 applications. I mean, they're so, my oldest son has told me specifically, he's like, I'm not getting involved in politics. I'm just trying to get my life started. And it's just too hard to get it off the ground. And so I think there is some of that. I don't think he's the only one. How do we get those kids moving in a direction to at least understand that if you don't pay attention to what's going on here, this over here isn't going to get any better?
Well, I think we have to flip the question, or like the statement that they make too, of like, well, I've got all these other issues, so I can't, really afford to be involved in politics. And I would challenge that by saying, well, that mindset is kind of how we've gotten to where we are today, right? Like, and I understand it's tough, and like I have the honor of being able to, kind of like work in the field. So I have a little bit of a different situation than some. But like, I guess trying to reframe it to them, like, well, if you want things to get better, you have to get involved. Like, things are only going to get better if people that have the right mindset step up to the plate. Doesn't mean you have to run for office, although we do need good legislators, but we also need people, like I'm sure some of the folks that that are just willing to go out there and, hold them accountable, knock a few doors, make a few phone calls, phone bank, a few hours on a Saturday morning, right? Or on a Monday, Tuesday, whatever fits into their schedule. And I think that a lot of that responsibility falls on our shoulders too, as the current activists and as the people that are already in the ring, to continue the outreach, to not just let these people the cracks. That's why we do our conferences, and we have like our big chapter meetings, because I think a lot of these people just feel like they don't have a community. Like they feel like, oh, well, I'm just one person, right? And I've been there. I think we've all been there. But when you have that community of like, other people that think the same way, other people that are, wanting to take action, they don't want to just sit around and talk about politics. They want to take political action. It's very inspiring. And I think that's one of the ways that we, outreach to these people.
Well, so that before you read that, Jenny, I think it's important in that, and I'm glad you asked them that question, because if we don't really start getting a hold of these people, and you mentioned responsibility multiple times in that, and I think that's ultimately what it comes down to is if they just fall through the cracks, who's going to pick them up is the government. The government's to give them the handouts, give them the low income housing, give them the food stamps, give them some assisted health care, give them some kind of low cell phone plan, whatever. And I think that is the most important thing is we have to help those people take responsibility for their own lives so they don't just become another number automaton for the government.
Yeah, well, and even if it's not the government that picks them up, certainly the establishment will. I've had friends that have went the complete opposite route in the political spectrum that, now they're, paid activists for establishment candidates. I mean, I even had one friend that ended up, completely shifted and going over to work for the Democratic Party.
No.
So, and it was a sad thing to see.
Well, what caused that shift, though? I mean, because that's, I think, the stuff that we really need to drill down to.
Well, I think, we both went to two different universities. So I think what it was just, like I said, I mean, having that culture, right? Like I was fortunate enough, one, to kind of hold my ground at least long enough to find Yale and get involved with Yale and start a chapter at my campus back when I went to OCCC. But they just didn't really have that community at the time. And I think, like I've been kind of hammering on, if you don't have that community of people to back you and, keep you enlightened, if you will, it's easy to just shift with the status quo and whatever seems kind of, popular around you at the time. And to do the easy route too. Because a lot of people, and this goes back to like idolizing politicians, is, people look at politics as this grand, noble journey. Everyone wants to be the president of the United States, but really, I mean, it's a battle. It's a battle against evil, if you will. Politics isn't, glamorous. It's not, studded crowns and, sequin dresses. It's a bloodbath out there. And that's what people need to understand is, like, if you're doing the right thing in politics, it's not going to be easy.
Well, my son graduated high school 2020, and Earl's daughter said, I honestly can't wait till these youngsters take power. They've lived through some of the most tyrannical propaganda in our lifetime, the powers that have pushed our youth to a breaking point. And I just look at what happened to, my kids were homeschooled, but I did have one kid who was at the, not the junior college, he was doing an engineering program at our local college, whatever that is. And so he was still being homeschooled. He just had this thing on the side. But what they did to those kids in 2020 was horrific. And I don't know. I mean, I would think the backlash from that would be part of the reason why people would want to get involved, because I think so. I would think, now this is just what happened to me, but I would think that instead of thinking that, politics is like this pomp and circumstance thing, that it would be full of crap. And that not only is that full of crap, but the media is full of crap. Everything is full of crap. I mean, just...
Yeah.
They saw so much happen that was just patently, blatantly false, patently, blatantly tyrannical. Yeah.
Well, I would push back and say, even, yes, I mean, that was out there. And I think any of us, with clear eyes could see it. But a lot of people had, the sheet pulled over their eyes. And they didn't, trust the science. We hear it all the time. Trust the science. It's fine. Get your 30-second booster. And then now we're seeing medical problems. It's always my body, my choice until it comes to getting some sort of liquid stabbed into you and injected into your veins. So that was another eye opener, I think, for myself. But I think the propaganda was, I mean, they did a really good job at covering that whole thing up. I mean, I'll give credit where credit's due. Just the whole government in general, that was, you were gaslit. You were told that you don't care about people. And that was, I mean, we saw local mayors and people, local officials in Oklahoma that claimed to be conservatives criticizing for not completely locking down the state, for not imposing more regulations than were already imposed on us.
100%, because I was a mayor at that time. So Robert says, oh, the propaganda in college is strong. I had a liberal political science class. The examples of how great FDR was and all of his 47 years in power, and how we live a good life today because of all the because all the handouts is endless. The other side is never taught. And that's, I just don't know how you, and Colin says, Robert Scott, we've seen it firsthand. And I know my kids have.
Yeah, well, and Robert makes a really good point there that I want to touch on, which is capitalism in general and how it's taught in our education system. Like he said, we get FDR, we get all these programs, and we're taught, oh, this is great. Now you guys got Social Security, you've got all these things, which, by the way, is about to run out. But we're taught that, oh, these are beneficial, and then you get to what they say is laissez-faire capitalism, and what they push is capitalism. They talk about all these terrible conditions. But what they fail to talk about is they fail to talk about government subsidies. They fail to talk about the actual enforcement of property rights. And that is what a free market is. But the state, we can't expect the state government to educate people on an alternative because it would bankrupt them. I mean, it'd be like, if I sold a red T-shirt business, why would I go tell you about the blue T-shirt business? It's one of those things where we're, like Robert said, we're not taught the full picture on the other side, but we're fed all this, federal trash and slop that you need to support these programs. And look, a lot of people have concerns about, well, what if we get rid of X, Y, and Z program? What's going to happen? Well, that concern right there shows that there's a private market that can pick up the program. But I mean, before the government, we had the church that did a fantastic job until the government, started, putting a lot of restrictions on nonprofits and religious organizations that were helping out their community. And my thing is, if the issue is such a concern to people, feel free to throw your own money into the pot. But don't expect me to bail out every single person every single time. And I believe in charity. I donate to several different organizations myself because I've seen the work of what the private sector can do. It does it much more effectively than any form of government. But yeah, I mean, it's propagandized to us. I mean, starting in high school and in middle school.
That somehow government is your friend. Robert says it was way back in the 2000s for me, and I've heard other stories from my nieces and nephews about mandatory DEI classes, and this is a problem. So I've got a question, because I hear several different things, and I'm really interested in your perspective. So what do you think about Charlie Kirk?
So I have a little bit of a different perspective on Kirk compared to a lot more people in the right wing. I'll say this on him: I respect the brand. I do think that there was a certain point where he was very relevant, and he still is. And he built up this brand that I think got a lot of people involved in the politics. I mean, even myself, arguably, because I've done some TP stuff in the past. So I respect the brand building aspect. I do think, though, there is too much of a focus from himself on the culture war stuff and not on actual policy, as well as we tend to see from that brand kind of a flip-flop on ideas. For instance, you could look at foreign assistance to other countries. 1 minute, if the president says we're not supporting them, okay, guys, it's the patriot move to not support this country. But then if the president says, well, now we're going to support it, well, we got to kiss the ring and flip ideology. So that's the issue that I kind of have with him as a political figure. I got to speak with him once, and we kind of had a little bit of conflict over, like, for instance, state of Oklahoma. He's like, well, why do you have all these issues? Like, it's a conservative state, you have a red legislature. And I'm like, well, that's not the case. I mean, red, but really when you look at it and you look at the voting record, it's a purple legislature. And that's my thing is there's there's too many people in the conservative front that are putting out content that say, well, if it's Republican, it's good, right? If it claims to be conservative, then it's conservative, right? And it's like, look, we can hold these people to the fire too. We can criticize the president. Like, it, for some reason, in a lot of circles, it's like the unforgivable sin to say that President Trump is not the all-seeing eye of Sauron, and that, he's a person like the rest of us and he can make mistakes. I think he's did a lot of great things too. I think, Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, I could get behind. I mean, I don't think that went far enough, but it's a decent start. But yeah, I mean, I think we should be, if we're going to have political figures that are influencers, we should hold them accountable too. And we also should do our own independent research and, not just kiss the ring of whatever the conservative right wing media is even saying, because sometimes they can be wrong too, because it's kind of an echo chamber sometimes.
Oh, I love that answer so much. I just can't possibly tell you how much I loved that answer. But I mean, it's
and like
true.
I said, I've got a lot of great friends that do TP. I've got a lot of great friends that do other groups too. But that's why I like Yale, because it's guns blazing. If don't get caught in the crossfire, we'll come after you, regardless if you're right, left, center, whatever, because we're principled in the liberty conservative values.
Okay, well that's the difference, I think. And so I wasn't even, I mean, what you said about Charlie Kirk applies to everything, I believe. I mean, and Michael and I have talked about this a lot of the time. It isn't about red or blue. It isn't about that. You either have a set of principles or you don't have a set of principles. And that's what we're missing. That's what we're missing, because somehow the principles get tied to the Republican Party. And while the Republican Party has these principles, theoretically, but if you live in Oklahoma, you see maybe 4 out of 70 that keep those principles. That the other ones just kind of, so long as the Chamber of Commerce is, is pushing them along and funding their campaign, they're for whatever works for them.
Yeah.
So we've got to stop. And like I said, it wasn't even about the person, more so it was about what you said about, it's about principles. It's not about a color. It's not about a party. It's about principles. And if you follow the principles, then they take you where you need to go. And sometimes that's going to be against the right. I mean, rarely are you in the blue camp. I mean, but there have been weird times where, especially on environmental issues, where I'm like, whoa, I got to stick my foot over here. I mean, so it's, if we don't have principles, then nothing else matters. So it has to be the principles above anything else.
Absolutely.
Were you going to say something, Michael?
Well, yeah, I was just going to make an analogy. And we talk about all the time about taking sports out of schools and that deal, Jenny. But I mean, it's basically what you're saying is there's red team and there's blue team, and you attach yourself to that team, just like in sports, where you may be a total loser in life. You never win. There's no way for you to ever be accepted, but your club, is the Dallas Cowboys or the Sooners or whoever it may be. And that's how you win in life. And that's how I think these politics in today's time has devised itself into red team, blue team. You identify with that team and you win in your life because you're advancing the team in general, regardless of whether it's good or not for the people and for liberty.
Yeah,
exactly. So Robert says this, and I think this is pretty interesting. Robert said Charlie Kirk was too interested in growing the Republican Party by numbers and softened conservative principles to get college youth to join him. Like, for example, supporting Dave Rubin and his partner adopting a child. And again, to me, that's not, we're off track there with that. I mean, to me. So I'm I kind of can see that perspective. And Lisa says they are like you said, they're public servants, not our leaders. We actually are the leaders. So when they say things like, our leaders in the Republican Party or our leaders in the House, I blanch because that's wrong. I'm the leader.
Yeah. Yeah, or like, committee leadership that just stomps out and tramples the rest of the voices in the committee just because they don't want to hear a bill. I mean, we saw that a lot. And of course, you see that happen with a lot of good bills and a lot of good issues is it's like, well, they know if it went to a vote, it would pass. But because, they've got the almighty power of being the committee chair, they're just not going to hear it.
What would be the point? Right.
Mhm.
So if you have, what is probably when the legislature is in, what is a tactic that you guys use to kind of lobby for liberty legislation?
Yeah, so and I can't speak as much to this since I'm not as much with our grassroots legislative arm. But I know like on what we do on our end as far as like getting students and getting communities mobilized behind these issues is, number one, we run several different petitions. If you're on our email listings, you'll see that we've had some petitions to completely abolish the income tax, completely abolish property tax. We had the issue that was down in Texas with taxpayer funded lobbying that seems to be really popular. We weren't sure if that was going to be a hit or a miss in Oklahoma, which I think it should be a hit. And fortunately, it seems to have been. So that could very well be an issue.
Because I'm not sure what that is. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of kind of niche specifics to it. But just to give you a rundown, there's a lot of public institutions that are funded with your tax dollars that'll spend some of that money and go hire lobbyists.
Okay, so you're talking about like this state Department of Education has a lobbyist, and the Roads and Transportation has a lobbyist. That's what you're talking about?
Yeah, well, even a lot of colleges and universities have lobbyists. That was something that we faced when we were trying to fight to abolish the mandatory meal plan thing at public universities was the rural college lobby. Because it was really shocking. The flagship universities didn't care about it as much because they already charge you an arm, leg, and a kidney to go there. The rural colleges, that's where they try to make, some of their money too. But like with all good businesses, if you have to force someone to buy your product, it's probably not a good product. But yeah, no, you got public universities, different groups that'll fund lobbyists with your tax dollars. So that'd be something. But kind of going back to your original question, like how do we actually take action, right? Like in the Capitol. So, part of getting petitions, one, isn't just from, one, that's to demonstrate support to legislators. Like, hey, these are the issues that your community cares about. But that's also like when people sign a petition, like that's also to me, when I sign something, is like, hey, here's my info. You can reach out to me and I want to help mobilize too. So we don't believe in just sending one guy up to the Capitol, with a check. We don't do that. I know there's some groups that they believe in that. They send one or two people up there, and that's all you ever see. It's very hush-hush, cloak and dagger, typical lobbyist style. But we believe in the grassroots. If we're going to push an issue, it's going to be an issue that we can get people to go up to the Capitol for. For instance, here pretty soon, we've got some activists that are going up to the Texas Capitol, and they're going to be delivering petitions against taxpayer-funded lobbying. We've got, activists.
Can you bring that here?
Look, I'd love to. I would absolutely love to. I'd love to see that.
Please.
So, and I think that now that we're, as the grassroots movement, we're, finally getting our stuff together and we're figuring out how we need to work on these issues. That's something we can do. But yeah, so number one, we'll do petition deliveries at the Capitol, have constituents go and talk to their legislators. But I'll give you kind of rundown from my personal personal experience too with helping out with some of our issues. Like for instance, on the campus front, the meal plan thing. We went up there, brought a ton of students that were all volunteers that they wanted to come up. They took time out of their day to go to the Capitol. They went to every single House of Representatives member office and said, hey, we want to get rid of mandatory meal plans at colleges. And these weren't just people my age, like 20, 22, 23. We had single moms. We had, people with, 5 siblings living in an apartment together. We had, just about every walk of life going up there and saying, look, this isn't working. It's not, and we're not just fighting for ourselves. That's what I always try to point out. Like, we're fighting for our communities, right? Like when you go up to that Capitol building, it's not just about what you want. It's about what your community's wanting, and you're representing an entire base. And so, went up there, did that. Pressure. Activists were there pretty much that whole week. Leadership wanted to sit on it. We weren't going to let that happen. And so eventually they were like, okay, fine. We'll hear it. We'll have it heard on the floor. And so the bill related to meal plans went to the House floor. You had a couple people. I really love our great, our honorable Democratic Party that would never lie to their constituents, and they always vote on principle. Kind of like when they say they want affordable education, and then they almost all unanimously voted against making meal plans optional. So that was a bit of a fight, but they were in a minority. There were a few Republicans that voted against it, but it is what it is. It got through pretty easy, right? And then it got over to the Senate, and we all know how great our Senate Education Committee leadership is. Well, we, more students came up to the Capitol, and they tried to get meetings with every single legislator. Now, there were a few that they were able to talk with that were very supportive. Of course, you have, a lot of our patriots like Dusty, Kendall, people like that are in that committee. But then you have leadership. For instance, you had Ali Seifrid, who refused to talk to students, refused to talk to any of them on the record. Finally, they were able to get a meeting with her. They attempted to record it because at Yale, we believe if you're going to talk to a legislator, you need to get it on camera, because just lip service doesn't work. They can make a spoken promise and then, throw it in the trash the moment that you go out the door.
Fair enough.
And so she didn't want to be recorded. I mean, we've got that on camera of her saying, I don't do video. So shows you what kind of transparency is going on in that building. But it ended up dying, which is fine. You know what? In some ways, I'm not glad that it died, but I am, because I think that was an eye opener for a lot of students and a lot of community members of, your government doesn't care about you. They're going to do whatever they want until you go up there and you bully them a little bit. They want to play like high schoolers. We'll come in and we'll be the bully and take their lunch money away from them. If that's the game that they want to play. Yeah,
and see that bugs me, because I'm with Sarah. That's it.
Yeah, it's gross, and I name dropped her, but that happens with a lot of people. I mean, you saw the whole thing with Green kicking out constituents over.
Ain't no videoing.
Mm-hmm. Ain't no videoing.
Jenny. That's the theme down there at the GOB. No videoing.
No videoing. Yeah. And the folks commenting are exactly right. I always made the joke that we ought to have a bill that all of the legislators got to keep a body cam on or something and keep it recording 20. Like, I want live stream. I want the green cam that I can log into and watch on a day-to-day for some sort of transparency. I mean, if they don't want us recording it, maybe they can record themselves. I don't know if they're more comfortable that way.
There's plenty of technology in today's time. They could all just be on a live stream. Anytime they're in that building, that'll just be total live stream.
Yeah. Well, and on the subject of technology, you had the legislation. This is another thing affecting students. The ban on cell phones in public schools.
Trenton.
Well, and you know what's funny is if you look down at that Capitol floor, if you sit up in the gallery, if you log on to the live streams during the session, half of them look about like this the whole time while they're there at their desk, right? So my thing is, if you're expecting the students to not be on their phone, well, how about we get the grown adult that's getting paid to pass laws and change the legal system potentially? How about we get them off their phones too? And if that's the standard that we're supposedly wanting to set. But of
Totally
course,
stomped on my most maddening. And let's just look at this from a policy perspective. Just 1 second. Oh, we're for local control. We're for local control. You can't do this because we're for local control. Not if you want to make all your kids get off cell phones. What's going on in a classroom? Do you know how many public school people have been molesting children? But now we can't have cell phones. Now,
yeah.
that one
Well,
makes
it's
my
an
head
accountability
pop
thing.
off. My blood pressure gets so high when I talk about that stupid thing. It makes me.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go back to this one. The question then is, how do they keep getting re-elected?
Yeah, there several factors go into that. I think I'll say this. Number one, it's because a lot of people just don't know. And I'm not pointing the finger at those people. I think for the average person that's not in political world like me 24/7, that's easy. I mean, stuff slips through the cracks on my end sometimes, right? But I think a lot of people just don't know. And going back to, we've talked about during this entire time, accountability on our end to make sure that we're going out into these districts, we're going out and educating. I mean, that's the importance of lit drops and door knocking, is having those direct conversations, go into county meetings. But also, we need more good people to step up. There's a lot of people that are afraid to. There's potentially people listening right now that want to run for office, but they don't think they have the resources. And let me tell you, they can throw $1 million, they can throw $1 billion. But the point is, if they don't have the grassroots and the community to back them, none of that matters. They can throw mailers, they can throw attack ads. I mean, look what they did with Gabe Woolley. I mean, or Jim Shaw. I mean, they went after those guys.
Yeah.
They said
No,
all
they
sorts
totally
of muckraking. But the grassroots mobilized and kicked some ass, and the establishment is afraid of that. And that's why, they don't want you to know that. They don't want you to mobilize. They don't want you to go out in the communities. And they intimidate too. I mean, we had you want to talk about YAL activists over in a couple different. We've had throughout the whole time of door knocking. You get these legislators or their cronies that live in their districts that when we're out door knocking, they'll take photos and they try and bully and dox and harass these activists, volunteer activists, volunteers.
Name names.
Well,
Names.
I mean, for instance, you had over in South Carolina, there was a legislator, a Brandon Guffey, that some students were out door knocking in his district, and then, he said some pretty horrible stuff. They like doxed one of the members, like put her Facebook up on the comment section, was like, hey, this is her, and it's like, look, these are volunteers, right? Like, if you want to have beef with someone, have beef with us. Like, hate Yao, hate the staffers or something, but like, don't go after the volunteer door knockers. I mean, these are people that are just trying to get active and also hold people accountable. So and that's why they don't like it though, because they wouldn't do it if it never worked. But they rely on intimidation tactics and fear tactics. I mean, I think on your account or some other accounts, you had that Oklahoma Energy Alliance running their mouth on comment sections. And it's like these people rely on, confrontational models sometimes like we do, although I'd say they're definitely not as effective. And they confront the wrong people. They get confrontational with, like I said, the volunteer door knocker. They're not holding and getting the actual policy decision maker.
They
confronting.
lie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they just flat lie. I mean, that Oklahoma Energy Alliance was just a big fat lie. Colin says, and this is going back to the school cell phone thing, but this is one of the big things. What happens if a tragedy happens in high schools? How are kids going to be able to call their parents? I mean, if you wanted to really do something in public schools that would stop kids from being distracted, it would be getting rid of the screens. Stop teaching them on a damn computer. Actually, teach them with a book, with a teacher who knows what the heck they're talking about. So they don't want, this is the thing that just kills me about everything. Nobody wants to deal with the actual problem. They want to find another problem that's an easier problem to solve that they can propagandize around and then submit that problem instead of fixing the one that's the actual real problem.
Yeah. I mean, they mix up, causation and correlation. They find like one little tie to something and then they take it and run with it.
Ugh.
So,
and then they
honestly,
lie on their mailers, and I mean, good night.
yeah, well, and funny comment about what Lisa just said too. I don't know if you guys had saw where there was some group, they put out a mailer and they said, X representative voted for these three bills, and the bills weren't even like the bill numbers weren't related to the issue.
It was green. It was great. Green was one of them, and there was a whole bunch of them.
Oh, yeah.
So whoever that political consultant was, they put all the wrong bill numbers on a whole number
and maybe,
of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and to the benefit of the doubt, maybe that was an old bill number, but like you got to clarify that. Like that was some real sloppy work on their end of like they vote. It's like, well, we're in 2025, buddy. We're not in 2023, 24, 22, 21. Like, look, here's what I'll say though. If they want to be that stupid and keep putting out things like that, go for it. Waste your time and money. Keep spending money on mailers that aren't even accurate.
But you know what? I do think your model of going door to door, and I like that idea of getting them to sign like a petition. I think that's phenomenal because I do think that one of the reasons why Gabe won, I think a reason why Jim Shaw won, my friend Molly Jenkins won, they actually spent the time going door to door and meeting those voters. And so many people just get that stupid card in the mail and go, oh my gosh, look, so-and-so's a rhino, and they don't pay any attention to it. And I think when they're standing right in front of them and they have a chance to talk to them, it changes the whole landscape. So, I commend you guys for doing that, because I think that's the most important thing is we've got to get away from that, oh, Jim Shaw's a rhino or whatever it is, and just start talking to one another. Well, Trenton, I don't want to keep you all morning because I know you're super busy, but kind of give us an outro here about your organization and how we can help you and kind of sweep some younger people your way.
Yeah. So, number one, as far as like sweeping people my way, people getting involved, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, however people want to reach out to me. If they reach out to you, they want to give me a direct call, that's fine by me. Preferably don't call me at 2 a.m. I might be asleep. I might not be. Who knows? I probably still won't answer the phone. But I'd be more than happy to talk to people that are, interested in getting involved, whether that's, office, whether that's helping people out and getting into the office positions, whether that's just a community policy fight, or if people just want to be in the know and keep up with what's going on and what we're up to at YAL. But yeah, YAL, we're, for anyone that's, joining in once again, I would argue that we're going to build up the next front of patriots, right? We're building up the grassroots youth of Oklahoma and across the country. And we're going to start holding politicians accountable. It's a season for accountability. And if people want to join too, and become like an official YAL member, we have a website link. It's just yaliberty.org. /join-now.
Hold on. YA Liberty.
.org
/
/join. Yep.
Okay.
Join-now.
Okay. Got it up there. All right. So I'm putting it right there. That's the right one, right?
Yep. And yeah, so I like it. If people want to get involved, that's a great way too. Would love to connect with more people. Would love to connect with both of you guys later too. And we're gonna take this state back. But it starts with people being, brave enough just to get involved, to say, hey, I'm tired of what's going on and I want to make a difference.
Well, Trent, I'm hoping too that you're going to be able to go to our Liberty, Oklahoma conference too in November and be there for the young people we're hoping are going to come to that as well. So we hope to see you there.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
Good deal. Well, Trenton, thank you for taking your time this morning. I really appreciate it. We had a really nice audience today. So I'm hoping that Earl's daughter says, let's go. So I hope that some people actually do reach out to you, and we'll keep putting your name out there and trying to get people going your direction, because I just I love Ron Paul and I love your model. So keep it up.
Well, thank y'all. And it takes everyone. It takes the content creators. It takes the community activists. It takes the precinct chairs. It takes the door knockers, the phone callers, just the average everyday person, because that's all what we are at the end of the day. And we're Oklahomans. And I think we're going to make Liberty win, and we're going to create Oklahoma into a lighthouse state.
I'm behind you all the way.
Lisa's got a comment there before Trenton gets off.
What? Okay. Trenton, please do another boot camp in OKC.
Well, I've got good news. I don't have the exact date, but we do have one coming up in September, to my knowledge. So,
can you please get that information to me
absolutely.
So I can get that out? I'm happy to do that.
The moment that I get it, I'll actually work on trying to get that info today so we can get it out as soon as possible. So
yeah, please.
We've got to get
it up on the
Liberty, people together. Site. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank y'all very much for having me on. I appreciate it.
No, thank you, Trenton. And we will talk to you soon, I hope.
All right. Talk to y'all soon. Take care.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye. That is one awesome dude. I mean, if we could have, maybe even 20 Trenton Rippies, I think we would.
They're out there. They're out there, Jenny.
It's
nice to see, because I look at myself at like that same age. I had no clue, go rewind back to like the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. There was no political involvement in any. It's almost like at that time for me, it wasn't even necessary. I was just, living pretty free, doing whatever I wanted. I didn't have a lot of money, but I could pretty much do whatever I wanted to do. So I'm glad
I think I
came out there, because it's good to know that young people in their early 20s are really understanding the concept of liberty.
Well, I think, I look at my oldest son who says, we can't even afford a house. And, my problem is there's not a cause and effect, because I was the same way as you. When I was that age, I wasn't paying any attention to that kind of stuff. We're missing the piece where our young people, so many of them, don't get the cause and effect part. They complain about this, but so many of those become victims, right? And then they go into the victimhood spiral. And that's where we get so much of the, crap on college campuses with the DEI and all of that nonsense. But what we need to do is put the cause and effect together. Well, I can't buy a house because we have crappy politics. They don't understand that if we could get insurance fixed, for example, and we've got to do that next session. I don't know who we need to talk to about figuring that nonsense out, but I know that people are about done with it. But that's kind of, look, if you aren't happy, or if this is something that's upsetting you, it's probably because, our dopes at the state capitol aren't protecting your liberty, which is their only job. So,
Jenny, how can you protect liberty if there ain't no videoing?
is never going to live that down. And I hope that comes back, because he's running, 26, the man is up. And
Yeah.
I hope somebody comes to step in there and then we've got this problem. I just can't even, I don't know how we've got so many things that we need to get on.
A lot of that
do what?
Well, a lot of that all goes back to, first, we need to have sound money back in this country. We need sound money.
What's that?
Well, it's actual money that is constitutional and has reserve backing, like gold and silver, the way that it's supposed to. Because all these things exist because of the fallacy of debt. These guys can spend into oblivion. They can do all this stuff. They can do all these programs. They can give all these handouts. They can do all these subsidies because of the debt situation. They just keep raising the debt ceiling. Effectively, if they didn't raise the debt ceiling, guess what? We'd be bankrupt. So they have to every single year. They have to keep raising, or multiple times a year. So first we need to fix the money system, and then that will in turn stimulate the actual value of free enterprise. And so sometimes, in my opinion, we're looking at the wrong thing. We're trying to fix all these
Sometimes
issues. Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of times we try to do the right thing, but the overarching problem, in my opinion, that is the ringleader of all of it, of all the government, all the tyranny, it all comes down to debt. Because when you have debt, now you're a slave, period. That's how it's always happened. I mean, we revolted against King George because of a taxation, a debt, and a tyranny type of situation. It's just the same, it's the same old thing.
In September, we've got Eric Snyder coming back. He's going to do Money Part 2. So we've got him coming back in September. And so hopefully, we'll be able to keep getting that information out there for people who really aren't.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. The US dollar, the way that it is now, has lost 98% of its purchasing power.
Good night.
Went on to this debt type of system on purpose. We should be gaining because we're the United States of America. We're free. We're the economic engine of the world, or we were. Well, there's a caveat to that, but ultimately, our dollar over these last 100 years should be getting stronger. Your savings should be worth more. Your assets should be more. Not in the value side, not just because like they're talking all this stuff in the economy right now about how great the economy is. It's not great. It's horrible. The only thing is we're paying more. Everything costs more. So when they projected last year that sales were going to be this, it's only because things cost more. So they have to charge more. I mean, it's insane. The whole deal's completely insane. But we have to fix the money system, in my opinion, to fix this country.
Yeah. So many things are on the inverted pyramid anymore. You know what I mean? I mean, everything seems to be upside down. It's bad. And Gracie agrees with you. Well, let's talk a little bit about what's going to happen for the rest of the month, because August is Friday. So we're going to have Jake Merrick on Friday. And then the next week, we're going to be off. So we're going to do some replays next week. And then we're going to come back and we're going to talk to Charles Key. We're going to have the part 2 of his presentation on the Oklahoma City bombing we didn't get to. So don't forget that. And do what?
So, and I have all those documents, so I'll put them up on the screen so we can see everything, because there's some pretty substantial documentation that I want people to see from that deal.
Yeah. Well, it's just crazy because when everybody's been making a big deal about what Dan Bongino said. It's so much worse than I even thought it was. I guess they're making a big deal about it because it's Bongino and everybody knows he's, seems like a pretty upstanding, trustworthy guy. And for some upstanding, trustworthy guy to go, oh, crap, essentially, everybody gets like, oh. But yeah. I think most people know that we have just degenerated at this point into, well, we don't have any justice. I mean, the justice system is screwed up. I mean, the money system is screwed. I mean, so many things are screwed up. I guess that's another reason why I wanted to have Trenton on today, because if the young people don't get it right now, how screwed up we are, we don't even have a chance. I mean, at least with them, we have a chance, but not until people know how screwed up we actually are. Yeah. So I don't know, maybe it was a good thing that Bongino was like, oh my gosh, this is so much worse than I thought. I don't know. I don't know how you wake people up. If you didn't wake up during COVID, I'm not really sure what's going to wake you up at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, there's multiple problems within that, what you just said. And part of that problem is you have, you've got the entire handout system, but on top of that handout system, basically the largest employer in every state and in the country is the government.
The government.
I mean, so it's kind of it's like a double-bladed, sword. I mean, a double-edged sword or something, to where the same people that you're trying to fight against are the people that you're working against, in both sides of that equation.
Yeah, it's so bad. And like John says, so much is bought and paid for, not just by money, but favors. And Earl's daughter says, I'm not impressed that the government agents are becoming aware of what we've known for decades. And I see what you're saying. I mean, but I'm kind of glad he said it anyway, because I think those people on the cusp of, they're like, oh, something's wrong, but it can't be the government because that's our government. I think people...
Go ahead.
Well, I think people just hearing somebody like that go, wow. It does there's another segment of the people that kind of tends to wake up, I think.
Well, that's what I was kind of getting towards. There's, we think a certain way, and yes, like I've said on this channel multiple times, we're kind of an echo chamber. We do have independent thought from the media and everything else, but there's a large, sect of people out there that if their doctor doesn't say it, or the news doesn't say it, or their politician doesn't say it, they for whatever reason, they rank those people's, what their opinion or what they say above their own thought process. So I think it's good, better late than never, that a guy like Bongino may say something that starts to bring some of those things into that atmosphere of no man's land where where a lot of these people live.
Yeah. What was interesting, I was reading an article, and it was, I hope you guys read Conservative Treehouse. I need to probably get an email reminder from that, but we have so many good Substacks, just Oklahomans that are out there. I mean, my gosh, the Domestic Diva just put out this big thing on Walters, and that, I mean, it was great in the Oklahoma Capitol, Jason Murphy's. There are just so many great things to read, but I was reading that I got a link to this Conservative Treehouse article that was with the Bongino thing. And basically they said that I mean, it's decades, this didn't just happen yesterday. I mean, it's been decades. But basically, the FBI literally trains the people that they go and seek out a particular individual who's willing to screw over the population to keep the status quo in Washington, D.C. And they don't care about anything outside of Washington, D.C. Their whole job is just a protectionist system for the people in power in DC, and mainly the Democrats, not even so much even the establishment Republicans. It's mainly the Democrats. But the point of the matter is they find these people who are willing to screw over their fellow countrymen. They adopt programs and principles that teach these people how to screw over their, and I remember during COVID, we saw, I know it hit the conservative talking space about the fact that there were literally FBI people that were going around to different states and talking about hate groups that were like Tea Party activists and people who had, American flags on their cars and things like that. And that's what they literally are brought into the system to hate and despise Americans and people who like America. And I think that's probably what Bongino was referring to. And that's what the American Treehouse or the Conservative Treehouse article was talking about, was that kind of thing. But I don't think we realize, I think we know about the deep state, but I don't even think we have a clue as to how deep the deep state really is and how these people have been targeted, and they've been pulling in people who kind of automatically hate us and hate conservatives and conservative viewpoints and principles, and training them up to do that and sending them out as a job, to actively work against us. So, it's.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of like, it's that deep state is such a different reality. Like regular people, I don't think they can really comprehend just how bad, how evil, the lengths that they'll go to stay in control or manage a situation or whatever. Just because I can't imagine doing that doesn't mean that someone else wouldn't. And they're all, they're funded in one way or another. I mean, to do that, they're incentivized, and it's, it's protectionism almost in one way or another.
So Robert, now he's on Rumble. I don't know what happened there, but he said this, and this is 150,000% correct. Nobody really says what it looks like to relinquish government control. It means that parents have to raise their kids. Yeah. Kids have to care for the elderly. Churches have to provide aid to the community. I really want to take that. I think I'm going to steal that from you, Robert, and make a meme out of it, because I do believe that I'm 100%. If it's not easy, if we can't quash that easy button and take care of it, if we can't have somebody else do it for us, we don't want to do it. We don't want to have to take care of our parents. Why isn't that why there are retirement centers and, elderly homes? Why would we want to do that? Why? Why would we want the churches to get into the community and take care of the community? We want the government to do it, and it's disgusting, and it makes me sick. I mean, it literally makes me sick. But I until you get the Marxists out of the public schools, it's not going to get any better, because that's where all of this comes from. Well, but that, John hit that on the head. That won't work. Then we won't have anybody to blame. That's right. Because it can't be me. I can't be a problem. I can't be the one that's doing the wrong thing. All right. So, and then at the end of the month, unless because we now have I'm just going to say it so she can't get out of it. So I'm going to be out of town the last week in August. And then I'm also having knee surgery in September, which is going to kick me off for a while. And so we have a stand-in for me. And I talked to her yesterday. So our friend Katie Smith from V1SUT is going to be my sub for when I'm gone. So you've got that to look forward to. And I'm going to find a couple of people for last week of the month. And then Katie and Michael will be on without me. And I'm going to be so excited. That's so exciting. All right. Anything from you before we get, and Katie and I are going to be back at 3:00. We got a nice audience. So listen up. Katie and I are going to be back at 3:00 this afternoon. We're going to be talking about the Ryan Walters porn gate, nudie gate, porn gate, whatever you want to, we're going to be talking about that.
Well, I do want to show one thing, you know, Trenton kind of mentioned something about subsidies, and it was a little blurb, and then I was going to bring this up, but I just wanted to show you. So in Google in 2023 received $0.3 billion in subsidies.
Yep.
And kind of a key point of that is if you look down there, Jenny, it says that there was no federal subsidies. That's all just state and local subsidies, 2.3 billion. And you take a company like that. So here's Google, here's, so in 2023, this is their 23 number, they made $133 billion. So they're literally receiving almost, roughly, I'd say, almost 1.75% of their profit is from subsidies, our tax dollars in one way or another. I mean, what a joke. You want to talk about just crony capitalism. And on that note, I wanted to just say something real quick. So I was reading earlier in the week a deal about how some of these, this is bad news for Oklahoma, but some of these data centers that are outside larger cities, like outside of Phoenix and places like that, they don't actually have enough power to divert over to those data centers. So they're seeing now, like coming into the summer, the massive amounts of energy that's being taken, in some of these places. So guess what? Guess where those data centers are going to wind up coming? They're going to be coming more and more to places just like Oklahoma, because who's got energy surplus? Who's got land? Who's got availability? So I'm telling you that these little stretch of data centers that we're fighting right now, that's just the beginning. If they see that, hey, we've got to go to a state like Oklahoma to build, 10 more data centers or 20 or 50 because they have the energy production that we need, that's what's coming. I'm telling you, that is what's coming.
No, I mean, that's why I labeled the article Data Center Deluge, and I've got to get that one out, but my goodness, I've got to have like 6 of me. And then, of course, my friend Lisa says this. Lisa, shame on you. Robert just spoke the truth. Take you a second to get that. Robert just spoke the truth. Quick, get the government control narrative queued up to remind everybody they can't survive without Big Daddy government. Absolute fact. Basically, as taxpayers, we're paying them to steal our personal info. But it's the same thing that we talk about all the time. Time takes more energy. AC is not cheap to run to cool them. It's not just water use. And there's, you can find that. Robert says, geez, these rich folks today wouldn't exist without government handouts and regulation pushing competition out. Facts. All right. Well, we're going to get off of here for now since we've got to come back at 3:00 this afternoon. Looking forward to kind of sussing out that whole Ryan Walters situation there. And Katie and I will do that for a little bit. And then, of course, we've got Jake Merrick on Friday. So tune in for that. And anything else before we hop off of here?
That's all.
All right. Perfect. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Look up Young Americans for Liberty and Trenton Rippy and get involved. Get involved. That's where our future is. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. Join us again at 3 p.m. this afternoon for Katie and I. Then we'll see you again on Friday at 9 a.m. with Jake Merrick. So see you then, and thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.